Hi guys, welcome back to the baseline. Today we're going to talk about why it always seems like the government has such an inability not to be able to fix itself. So, why does that? Why does it seem like the system never fixes itself? Bureaucracies, they always seem to be expanding instead of streamlining, and government spending, it spirals out of control, and corporations, they grow bloated and even more inefficient than ever, right? But the moment someone steps in to clean up the mess, they aren't always hailed as reformers. Sometimes they're labeled as reckless, dangerous, even a threat to democracy. And lately, we've seen this with Elon Musk and his drastic restructuring of Twitter, which is now called X. And we've also seen it with Donald Trump, whose efforts to reduce government and bureaucracy and federal oversight have sparked a lot of opposition. So, what is it about this backlash, and what's really being done? And what's it all about, and who loses power, who gains from it all? Let's try to break it down, okay? And full disclosure, guys, I'm not part of a team. I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I just want what's best for everybody. And when I see all these things going on, I really like to try to get through the mess and see what the real truth is of things, right? So when Elon Musk bought Twitter in 2022, he immediately cut costs. Thousands of employees were laid off, and entire divisions were actually shut down. And the company's content moderation policies were completely overhauled. Now, supporters of this saw this as a bold and necessary reform, arguing the platform had become inefficient and politically biased and financially unsustainable. So the critics, though, they saw it a lot differently. You know, so while Musk framed the layoffs as eliminating redundancies, some experts warned that engineering and safety teams were gutted, and that led to increasing site outages and security concerns. Content moderation cuts led to increase in misinformation and hate speech. According to independent studies from groups like the Center of Countering Digital Hate, Musk himself admitted the company was losing money and had to operate leaner. But the question remains, was he fixing inefficiencies or dismantling important safeguards? And why did the backlash seem so extreme? Which brings us to the Trump agenda and swamp draining, or is it power shifting? Donald Trump has long positioned himself as an outsider fighting for a system that's entrenched in a swamp, so to speak. And his supporters argued that his policies aim to reduce government bloat, increase efficiency, and return power back to the people. Now, Trump did reduce federal regulations during his presidency, his last one, and nearly 1,500 regulations were eliminated or weakened, particularly in environmental and labor policies. Now, some economists argued this helped businesses, while critics say it reduced protections for workers and the environment. One of the most controversial proposals is the restructuring of the federal bureaucracy, reducing influence of career officials in favor of political appointees. Now, experts warn that reducing career officials could make the government more partisan and less stable, with each administration wiping out institutional knowledge. So, is this about reducing inefficiency, or is it about concentrating power in fewer hands? Another aspect of all this is the government spending, right? And that, I think, inarguably has been a bipartisan failure. So here's something both parties are guilty of, right? Massive government spending. The national debt's over $34 trillion, and both Democrat and Republican administrations contributed to it, without a doubt. The Trump administration added nearly $8 trillion to the debt on the first time around, and largely due to his tax cuts and the pandemic, and of course, increased military spending. The Biden administration added $3.5 trillion in just over 2 years, with large spending bills focused on infrastructure, student loan relief, and climate initiatives. So while both sides blame each other, the reality is government spending has been out of control for decades, regardless of who's been in charge. So why is that any attempt to cut spending? Why is there no attempt to cut this spending? And why is it always met with resistance? Are politicians more interested in short-term promises than long-term stability? It really is an interesting question. Which brings us to immigration. Is that crisis, or is that a political tool? Immigration is one of the most divisive topics in American politics. Under Biden, illegal crossings at the southern border reached record highs, leading to calls for stronger enforcement. Trump's policies, like Remain in Mexico and increased deportations, were effective in reducing costs, but were criticized for humanitarian concerns and separating families at the border. So the debate boils down to this. Should immigration policies prioritize security or compassion? And is this crisis being solved, or is it just being used as a political weapon by both sides? Then comes media and censorship, and comes the question, who decides the truth in all this? And one of the most dangerous trends in modern politics is the battle over who controls the narrative. Twitter's former content moderation teams were accused of political bias, suppressing stories that were especially unfavorable to Democrats. After Musk's takeover of Twitter, he was accused of allowing more misinformation and hate speech, leading to a lot of advertisers pulling out of X. Meanwhile, some states attempted to ban books and restrict speech in schools, raising concerns about free expression on both the right and the left. So the bigger issue, censorship, is it just coming from one side? Should the government or big tech ever have the power to decide which voices get heard? So where do we go from here? This debate isn't about Trump versus Biden or Musk versus the media. It's about who controls power in America. Should we accept bloated institutions as they are? Or do reforms risk going too far, creating new problems instead of fixing old ones? The system has been failing for decades in this way. But is the solution small, careful adjustments of a complete, or is it a complete overhaul? And that's the conversation that we seem to need to have. So what do you think? Is the system truly broken, or is reform being weaponized by those in power? Comment in the section below. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts. And please like and subscribe to the channel. And stay tuned for the next episode of The Baseline. Thanks.